Welcome to part 3 of the series, and now I'm going to talk about how people who had 0 symptoms tested positive. Hey, I'm Dr. Patty Barch. I'm a traditional naturopath, founder and owner of Naturally Unbridled Wellness and naturallyunbridled.com, where we focus on wellness solutions, not disease management, both in the office and via Zoom. This is Down the Ridge with Dr. Patty. This is not medical advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. Nothing I say is true. Don't listen to me, despite the fact that I worked in biotech for 8 years, yada, yada, yada. Okay. In today's episode of Down the Ridge with Dr. Patty, we're going to discuss polymerase chain reaction, otherwise known as PCR, and how people who had 0 symptoms could test positive for such a lethal virus. Okay, I've been knocking around 2 different metaphors, analogies in my head, and I'm not sure which one I like better. But I figured I would share both of those metaphors with you, and you can decide which one you like best and drop it in the comments. Let me know. And then once I know how people are thinking, then in future stories, I can develop similar analogies. Okay. Oh, hi, little kitten. You stay there. Okay. Polymerase chain reaction, also known as PCR, is a way that scientists look for pieces of genetic material in a sample. Genetic material being nucleotide sequences. So go back to middle school science and you remember DNA is made up of nucleotides, A, C, T, G, and then RNA, instead of the T has a U for uracil. And then DNA is double-stranded, RNA is single-stranded. Science. Okay, so sometimes a scientist wants to know, is there a genetic sequence present in my sample? The problem is the sequence could be very short and hard to detect. So I think it was back in the 80s, maybe early 90s, a scientist named Carrie Mullis developed polymerase chain reaction and created the Human Genome Project, or oversaw the Human Genome Project and mapped out the human genome. And he created PCR and got a Nobel Prize for it. Interesting dude, definitely a genius, loved to surf, died a few years ago. He is on record as saying that it should not be used as a diagnostic tool because it could be manipulated to give you a positive test. If you did the sequencing or ran the PCR long enough, you can find anything, he would say. So the 2 analogies I've come up with, one is about the photocopiers, and this is where I think I'm going to lose some of the young people, but I'm not sure. But then the other one is about font size, and I think more of the younger people will get that. So let's see how this plays out. We'll do our own experiment. So photocopies. Okay. So when you hear polymerase chain reaction, polymerase, ASE, indicates it's enzymatic or involves an enzyme, which is a chemical catalyst for things to be broken down or built up. Excuse me. But the chain reaction part is the part that I want you to kind of pay attention to right now. And if you are really old like me, you can remember mimeograph machines where you actually rolled through photocopies, right? So, but now we have like regular photocopiers, Xerox machines that take pictures, basically scan a document and make a copy of it. So those of us with a little sparkle in our hair will remember like multi-generation photocopies that after time they were just filthy with noise, right? Like You could take an original, make a photocopy, and then if you copied the copy, it got a little dirty. And then if you copied the copy of the copy, it got a little dirty. So think about each one of those copies as the chain reaction part of polymerase chain reaction, where it's taking a sequence of genetic material, making copies of it until it has enough of it that you can see. So if you think back to making photocopies, sometimes you would make a photocopy that would come out too light. So you could take that light copy and you could put it back on the copier, and you could turn the toner all the way up to dark and take another copy. And that might still be too light, but it's darker than the first one. So then you take that copy, put it on the copier, crank up the toner all the way to dark, and make another copy. If you make enough copies, you'll be able to see that thing that was barely even there to begin with. So with polymerase chain reaction, with PCR, each time you make a copy, it's called a cycle. And what happened with the test that they stuck the thing up your nose, tickled your brain a little bit, and then they ran the test, is they made more copies than was scientifically accepted as sufficient. So let's say if you made a photocopy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and the rule was, if after 20 copies you don't see the thing, it doesn't count. It's a negative test result. So what they did with those nose tests is they were doing what is called overcycling. That they were making copies, they would keep making copies until they would see enough of a signal that they would say, yep, that's a positive test. And Carrie Mullis, the founder of, the creator of PCR, basically said that because it's such a short alphabet, the small amount of nucleotides, 4 letters, different orders, but yeah, that if you made enough copies, you could find anything. And he verbatim said that. So I hope you understand that they were making photocopies of photocopies of photocopies well beyond the standard practice to try to get something to show up on the test. The other analogy that I have in my head, I kind of equate to font size. So let's say what they were looking for was, like, we're going to use a book, a page of a book or a page of a document, okay? And so what they're going to say is, we're going to look at this page on the book, and we're going to look for the letters THE, the, right? So if they find the letters THE on the page enough times, they can call that a positive result. So this is kind of analogous to what they did. They took the page, let's say the page was a 16 font, pretty big font. So there were fewer words on the page because the font was so big that you maybe only had THE showing up on the page, let's say 4 times, which would be a negative result because that specific sequence could exist in nature and other things and doesn't indicate an infection. So they're looking at 20 font. Did I say, no, I said 16. They're looking at 16 font and they're saying, there's only 4. So it's a negative result. But then they go, what happens if we shrink the font size? So they go from 16 font to 14 font, and 2 more thes popped on the page because now they can fit more words on the page. And then they take that page and they go, let's go to 12 font size. And now, 4 more thes might show up on the page. And now they're thinking like, we're going to count theory and hypothesis and there, right? Like anytime THE is showing up, they're going to be counting that. And then they decide we're going to shrink the font down to 8 so that we have twice as many words on the page. So we are going to have a like double result, and we can say that's a positive test. So the moral of the story is they manipulated the testing in order to get positive results. So they could make people stay home, make people more scared. That was a big part of it. The other, what was I going to say? There was another thing I was going to say about that. Oh, yeah. So I remember, and hopefully you remember, that in 2020, you know, all the things, there was zero flu, zero. There was zero RSV. There was zero whooping cough, right? There were no other respiratory infections present in society. That the only respiratory infection going around happened to be the one they were testing for, where they were making extra copies and shrinking down the font so you could be guaranteed to get a positive result, have to stay home, and get people the crap scared out of them. Welcome to science. All right, you guys are doing a fantastic job interacting with these videos. I really appreciate it. It's absolutely helping. Typically, you know, maybe 600 to like 1,200 people watch one of my videos, and we're like, we're making extra copies. We're up to like 3,000 on one of the videos. I think maybe Monday's video or maybe Friday's video was like 3,000 views or something crazy. So yeah, help me, help me make extra copies and shrink down the font so more people can hear about this. More to come. Peace out, peeps. Have a healthy day.